He didn't fall in love with her, not in the way fairy tales describe. There were no candlelit confessions, no sparks flying under the stars. What brought him to her wasn't romance. It was compassion. She was broken, not visibly, not loudly, but in a way that only someone who truly watches can notice. Her eyes carried the weight of betrayal. Her voice trembled with stories she never told. And her silence, it screamed louder than words. Everyone warned him, "Don't get involved. She's damaged. She's not stable. Let her deal with her past first." But he didn't listen. He saw beyond her mess. He saw a girl who had been used, lied to, and left behind by the very people she trusted most. Her past was full of pain, an abusive relationship that turned her into a shadow of herself. And he thought maybe, just maybe, he could save her. So, he married her, not for passion, not for dreams of a perfect life, but to give her what no one ever had: safety, stability, and a second chance. He thought love could come later. He believed kindness could heal her. He didn't realize he was walking into a fire with no way out. This wasn't the beginning of a love story. It was the beginning of a slow, painful undoing. The day she stepped into his home, she expected more of the same: suspicion, control, maybe cold politeness. But instead, she found something unfamiliar. Silence, but not the dangerous kind. It was peaceful. The walls didn't echo with shouting. The air was intense. The home felt soft, like it had been waiting for someone to breathe in it again. He didn't rush her. He didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. He didn't touch her without consent. He didn't make her feel like a burden. Instead, he brought her a cup of tea every morning, just the way she liked it. Left sticky notes with small words of encouragement on the mirror. Kept a light on for her, even when she came home late and said nothing. Gave her space when she needed it and presence when she didn't ask. Learned the things that triggered her and gently worked around them. Never raised his voice, even when he was hurt or disappointed. Listened to her silence as if it were a language. Made the house feel less like a prison and more like a place of healing. Took her to therapy, but only when she was ready. Loved her gently, even when she didn't know how to love him back. It was the kind of love she had never known: slow, patient, without demands. And though she never said thank you, he believed he saw it in her softened eyes, in the way she stayed a little longer at the dinner table, in the way she started laughing again, even if just a little. He thought he was reaching her. He thought the healing had begun. But beneath her calm smile, a storm was still brewing. To anyone watching from the outside, she seemed better. She smiled more often. She dressed with care again. She even hosted a few guests, laughing softly at their jokes and playing the role of the happy wife. But he saw what others didn't. Her smiles never reached her eyes. Her hugs were hollow. And her silence had changed, no longer peaceful, but distant. Every time he tried to get closer, emotionally, not just physically, she would retreat. As if his kindness scared her more than cruelty ever did. She never spoke about her past. Never told him how it really ended. Never cried in front of him. Not once. She would say, "I'm fine," with that practiced calm. But in the quiet moments, when she thought he wasn't looking, he saw her staring at the wall, as if haunted by something she couldn't escape. He left his heart open to her. She kept hers locked shut. He told her he loved her. She changed the subject. He planned weekends to create memories. She stayed home with vague excuses. And still he didn't stop trying. He told himself healing takes time. That maybe her love had a different language. That maybe broken people just needed more patience, more safety. But deep down, a voice whispered to him, "She's not healing. She's hiding." And he didn't know yet that behind her guarded silence, something darker was forming. Not just grief, but resentment. At first, it was subtle. She would ignore his messages, then claim she forgot. She'd stay out for hours without saying where she'd been. When he gently asked, she'd shrug. "Don't be so controlling." He told himself not to overthink it. Maybe she just needed space. Maybe she was overwhelmed. But then it grew. She started lying, small things at first, where she went, who she met, why she was late. But soon, the lies stacked up like bricks between them. He knew the truth, but chose silence over conflict. He didn't want to be like the men she'd escaped from. He didn't want to make her feel cornered. So instead, he let her walk over his heart, gently at first, then with steel-tipped heels. She would talk down to him in front of others, roll her eyes when he tried to express emotion, mock his gentleness, call it weakness. Once, she forgot his birthday. He brought her flowers on hers. Another time, he stayed up all night nursing her through a panic attack. The next day, she accused him of doing it just to feel like a savior. And yet he stayed. He forgave. Again and again. Because he believed her pain made her cold, not cruel. She's still healing, he told himself. If I leave now, I'll become another man who gave up on her. But each act of disrespect chipped away at the bond they once tried to build. And the more he loved her through her darkness, the darker she seemed to become. He didn't realize he wasn't holding her up anymore. She was slowly pulling him down. He had once believed that love could heal anything, but now that belief was starting to bleed. She didn't just carry pain anymore, she weaponized it. Every fight turned personal. Every word she threw at him was sharper than the last. You think you saved me? You're just like the rest. I never asked you to marry me. That was your decision. You pretend to be good, but deep down, you're just weak. At first, he tried to reason with her. Then, he tried silence. Then apologies, even when he'd done nothing wrong. But nothing worked. She started twisting everything. If he came home late from work, she accused him of abandoning her. If he brought her a gift, she mocked him for trying too hard. If he stood up for himself, she'd cry and accuse him of being cruel. She made him feel guilty for her sadness, responsible for her every bad day. Like no matter how much he gave, it was never enough, and somehow, always his fault. Her bitterness wasn't about him. It was about her past, the wounds, the men who hurt her, the family that failed her. But instead of healing, she turned him into her punching bag, emotional, verbal, sometimes even physical. And he took it. Because he still saw the broken girl beneath the rage. Because he still remembered the way she had once trembled when he first offered her safety. Because he still loved her, even when she made it impossible to love himself. He didn't realize it yet, but he was no longer trying to save her. Now, he was just trying to survive her. Every man has a limit, a point where pain no longer breaks him, but shatters him completely. For him, that day came without warning. It was supposed to be a simple evening, a family gathering at their home. Laughter filled the rooms, glasses clinked, and smiles were passed around like appetizers. And then she began. At first, it was subtle, a sarcastic remark about how he pretends to be the perfect husband. A bitter joke about how rescuing her made him feel like a hero. Forced laughs from the guests. Nervous glances. But it didn't stop there. In front of his family. In front of hers. In front of the people who had once admired their story. She tore him apart. Word by word. Insult by insult. He's not kind, he's weak. He didn't save me, he trapped me. This whole marriage? A lie. A prison. A mistake. He stood there, frozen. Not because he was shocked by what she said, but because she had finally said it out loud. She didn't love him. She never had. And now, she didn't even respect him enough to keep the betrayal behind closed doors. Then came the final blow. She confessed to an emotional affair with someone from her past. Someone she never stopped loving. Someone, she said, made her feel alive. Unlike him. Silence fell in the room. Not just around him, inside him. She had destroyed him. Not with violence. Not with physical wounds. But with calculated cruelty, in front of everyone he cared about. And he didn't fight back. He didn't yell. He didn't defend himself. He simply walked away. Not from her. He had done that emotionally long ago. But from the man he used to be. Hopeful, trusting, kind. She didn't just break his heart. She burned his soul, while smiling. After the storm, there is always silence, but not peace. Days passed, then weeks. He lived like a ghost in his own skin, moving through life without color, without warmth. What haunted him wasn't just her betrayal, it was why she did it. And then, the truth began to reveal itself, piece by painful piece. It came from whispers, from people who knew parts of her past he had never been told. Old friends, distant relatives, quiet voices that began to speak after everything had already burned. She hadn't come into the marriage looking to heal. She had come with an unspoken mission, to punish someone, to release the rage she had bottled up for years, to hurt someone the way she had once been hurt. And he was just convenient.
Kind, trusting, soft.
The perfect canvas for her pain. He realized she had never tried to grow roots in their marriage. She had only tried to set fires, slowly, strategically. He remembered the small lies, the manipulation, the gaslighting. The way she twisted his goodness into guilt. The way she made herself the victim, even when he was the one bleeding. She didn't want love. She wanted control. She didn't want safety. She wanted revenge, not from him, but through him. All those nights, he stayed up praying for her peace. She stayed up planning his emotional undoing. Not because he wronged her, but because the men before him had, and someone had to pay. And he was the easiest one to destroy, because he was the only one who never fought back. He had entered her life like a quiet storm, gentle, but full of intention. He wanted to save her. Instead, he lost himself. He once had dreams, a peaceful home, shared laughter, maybe children one day. He had passions, books, music, late-night walks. He had a personality, warm, thoughtful, hopeful.
But now?
He couldn't recognize his own reflection. His eyes were dull, his shoulders heavy. His silence no longer patient, it was hollow. He had spent so long pouring into her empty cup that he hadn't noticed his own heart running dry. He gave up his needs, his comfort, even his voice, all in the name of love. But love never came back. He became the man who flinched at kindness, the man who second-guessed his every word, the man who used to offer comfort, but now couldn't even feel his own emotions. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. He was just lost. Not because she broke his heart, but because she broke his identity. He who once stood tall with noble intentions, now stood in ruins, emotionally wrecked, mentally drained, spiritually numb. People around him would say, "You're free now. Move on." But they didn't understand. He wasn't mourning a woman. He was mourning the man he used to be, before love turned into a weapon, and trust became the blade that cut him the deepest. He used to believe that love was the answer to everything, that kindness could melt walls, that patience could heal scars, that good intentions were always enough. But now he knew better, because sometimes the person you're trying to heal doesn't want to be healed. Sometimes pain becomes their identity, and peace feels like a threat. He had poured his soul into a broken heart, but she didn't want to be whole. She wanted to stay in pieces and make him bleed on the shards. And in the end, that's what happened. His love didn't save her. Her pain destroyed him. He realized far too late that love isn't about fixing someone. It's about choosing someone who wants to be better, too. You can offer them the safest home, the kindest words, the softest touch. But if they're still fighting ghosts, they might mistake you for one of them and swing until you're gone. He learned the hard way. Not all broken people are yours to repair. Some need to face their own darkness alone. And if you try to carry them through it, you may lose yourself inside their storm. His heart had been pure. His intentions were golden. But even gold melts in fire. And hers never stopped burning. Rock bottom is a strange place. At first, it feels like death. But sometimes, it's where you learn how to live again. He had been burned down to nothing. No love, no trust, no sense of self. But from those ashes, something began to stir. It started small. A morning walk, without fear of judgment. A deep breath, one that didn't feel like guilt. The first laugh, short, shaky, but real. And slowly, quietly, he began to rebuild. Not for anyone else.
Not to prove he was worthy.
Not to fix someone else's brokenness. But for himself. He returned to old hobbies. He reconnected with friends he had pushed away. He found beauty in solitude, peace in silence that was now his own. He didn't rush to fall in love again. He wasn't searching for someone to complete him, because this time he was learning to be whole on his own.
He understood now.
You cannot save someone by losing yourself. Healing is a door you can hold open, but not one you can push someone through. And most importantly, he promised himself this. I will never again give the best of me to someone who isn't ready to receive it. I will never again confuse sacrifice with love. I will never again make someone else's healing more important than my own. He rose, not as the man who tried to save her, but as the man who finally chose to save himself.